This is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and today on Light Talk, we are talking about a chorus line, bulbs or lamps, architectural lighting, and dealing with pigs.
Oink, oink, oink. And this is David in the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Oh, you didn't do the fizzle.
No, no fizzle.
All right.
Take two, no fizzle.
Okay.
The fizzle's gone. You can only do it once a day.
I know, it's only improvisational.
That's right. Welcome, everyone, to episode 174. And before we get started, news today. Boy, a lot of news has happened today. Big news. Google has announced that their employees will be working at home until July of 2021.
Makes sense for an internet-based company, doesn't it?
Actually does. But you know something? I think this is going to happen throughout corporate America. Because I think people are realizing that they don't need all that real estate space anymore.
Get out of commercial real estate. Nobody needs it. Sell all your commercial real estate holdings now.
Well, that's going to affect your business, right, Stan, in architecture?
You know, it's true. Maybe architectural lighting is not the thing because, you know, who needs it? Maybe we need to go into like landscape lighting and light people's homes. I'm actually exploring that myself these days. So think about where people are going to be most of the time, and if they're going to be home more, they want their landscape lighting to be nice.
That's right. Do you know who used to do landscape lighting? Marilyn Renegal.
That's right.
So she branched off. She got out of the theater. So that was another smart move. And she got into something that actually pays some money.
I don't think Google can pull this off. And the reason I say this is that I have friends in the industry who are now working out of their homes. And when I talk to them, you know, these are eager beavers drawing their large salaries and driving their mid-price BMWs. And I say, how is this? How is it working out of my home? And, they reply, oh, it's not too bad. We do the minimum amount of work necessary because no one is watching us. So this could go the other way. It could go south real fast.
So they're admitting to being lazy, right?
Yeah, they'll put in a hard 90-minute day.
Okay. And the other bit of news, and this is more toward the theatrical end, is that a few days ago, we celebrated the 45th anniversary of A Chorus Line on Broadway.
Singular sensation.
Nation, everything a step you take. Da, 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 da. One. And we were all there when it happened. So how do you think Chorus Line has changed the industry? Just a minute on this one.
I feel better about wearing leotards and tights to the tech now. You know, I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to accessorize.
I feel nothing.
All you have to do is go back to that Gordon Perlman episode.
Right.
And boy, it changed everything. It changed that move from DC to AC. Mm-hmm. It ushered in consoles. You were no longer tied to preset boards. It was a big, daring thing for them to do, and it could have gone south also. So investing in new technology, which is what we should all be doing every day of our lives.
It did a lot of things, performance-wise and certainly design-wise, because Theron lit that as a dance show. Yes, it was a dance show, but it was really a musical when you think about it, right?
It was therapy. I think it was courageous. I think, it grew out of, talk about the story for a minute, it grew out of these therapy sessions downtown of these dancers who couldn't make a living, and they all were telling their stories. And I don't know who got the original seed of the idea. It's like, this is a story worth telling, and could we put this together? And I think it was courageous to sort of tell those stories, and it was sort of a courageous dramaturgical leap to sort of do that, and the whole thing took a lot of courage, and I think it was a risk, and it turned out to be, no risk, no gain, and they certainly. How many road companies did it have at one time? Like 20, 30 international companies running around the world. What an enterprise!
Definitely changed everything. I know Richard Winkler was Theron's assistant on the show, and he has relit it, and Natasha Katz has relit it, and also Ken Billington. A lot of people have relit it, but they always kept the original spirit of Theron and the design. Exactly. They kept that design because, let's face it, it really was a perfect design for that show. So speaking of A Chorus Line, letters to Light Talk Central. That's right. We've got another letter coming in. Boy, people are writing us now. You know, carrier pigeons are like dropping letters left and right.
It's a little scary.
It is. So this is from Mark Kiefer. And Mark wrote us last week, and the subject is a chorus line at the public. I just finished listening to episode 173 on Light Talk. I have been listening to the show quite regularly for about a year now, and I really enjoy the technical information combined with the silly banter. Silly banter.
That's me and you. That's me and you, David.
Okay. Steve is always serious. Anyway, to continue. I am a self-professed lighting history nerd and have read and studied the subject more than it is probably healthy for my social life. To that end, I offer a minor correction to something that was said today. When a chorus line opened at the public in April of 1975, they had a 5-scene preset board and electronic dimmers of some sort. If I had to guess, they were mostly Kliegel, but I can't confirm that. Because of that level of control, Theron was able to produce fairly complex lighting cues with a lot of fast changes and bumps. I bet there were at least 2, if not 3 people working on that board. When the show was moving to Broadway, she knew that she would never be able to produce those effects on piano boards. And after a series of screw-ups and miscommunications between various people at 4-Star and EDI, Paul Bennett approached Gordon Perlman for his prototype LS8 in a final desperate attempt to get Theron a memory board for the Broadway transfer. Keep up the good work, guys. Mark Kiefer. Well, thank you, Mark, for that great letter and the correction. I don't know where I heard that piano boards are used on the public performance, but boy, thanks for correcting us on that.
Does this qualify, Mark, for a non-safe dishwasher coffee mug?
No.
Okay.
No, he gets a shot glass. Because I think Mark would appreciate the shot glass more than the damn coffee mug. So when we find the shot glasses, they're on your way, buddy. And send us your address, too. Don't expect quick delivery. Anyway, so let's get started. Steve has our first question.
Yes, it comes from Josh in Atlanta. And Josh writes, is it a bulb or a lamp? I think what you're going to find is there are 3 kinds of light bulbs: incandescent, halogen, and compact fluorescent. And what I do seem to find is that everyone agrees they're called lamps. Just, it's a lamp. No one calls it a bulb. I looked at the major manufacturers over the years also, and they refer to it as a lamp. The only people who kind of call it a bulb in a way would be the film industry, and they call it a bubble or a globe. But lamp is really kind of the preferred term. I think also there was a time in the theater that we had lamps, and we would light those lamps when we would watch the shows. So I think this is maybe a holdover a little bit from that also. But I think these days we're pretty solid. We call it a lamp. We don't call it a bulb. Or as our friends across the pond would say, bulbs is what you put in the ground. You know, the other thing here too is as I was researching this, we had a question a couple years ago about, is it all right if I call my friend a techie? And we had
let's not get started.
We had
on
a long
that.
conversation about that,
Oh,
but
my
I found something really great, and that was it's not unusual in the UK to call the electrician the Lampee. Because
Lampee.
The Lampee. And my favorite, which I'm going to go with now forever, when I refer to the audio engineer, the Noise Boy.
The Noise Boy.
Katrina in Romania writes, I am graduating from my university next year with a degree in technical theater. I have heard horror stories about directors, designers, and other people in power taking advantage of young theater artists while on a production. I am thinking of not pursuing a life in theater because of this, but I really love lighting design. What should I do? Well, let me just start saying that this is a very sad letter. Question. This is a very sad question, yes, this does happen, and this does happen in our industry, and it happens in a lot of industries, as we all know. Seems to be really prevalent in the entertainment industry. You know, with that whole Harvey Weinstein thing, and remember the old casting couch and all that stuff. Right. People would joke about that. This is not a funny issue, First of all, I'm going to make this really short because this could be a let's talk about, but let's be serious here. This is a horrible thing. There are people like this. They're monsters. They're pigs. They really are pigs. And don't let these people deter you from your passion. Be strong. Go out there. Create your art. And when somebody tries to pull this crap on you, you turn them in. You stop it. You turn them in. You hold on to your dignity. And you don't be quiet. There are too many people who just are afraid to make a stand here. But know now that there are people behind you. And let me tell you something. The people who I've worked with in the industry, I'm going to tell you right away, right now, I don't know of any person personally who would put up with this. And matter of fact, I know of people who've been hit on for various sexual things and horrible things, by people who are in positions of power who stood up, and the entire company stood up with them. And there's something happening right now that has to do with something that I've seen on Facebook lately with somebody who's been doing this and who's been charged with this. And now everybody's standing up against this person. So I think you've got to do that. And you've got to hold on to your love. You've got to hold on to your passion. And you've got to just be the person you need to be and hold on to your dignity.
Well, I think David really hit it on the head here. But I also want to point out that this is no reason not to go into the arts. Because this happens in every profession. It's happening down at the law office. It's happening at the hospital. It's happening down at the police station. It's happening anywhere that people are together and you have a predator in your midst. So I think David has really succinctly answered this, but I just remind you, it's something we can't get away from. All we can do is fight, and all we can do is, as David said, report it. There's no going back. There's just no going back. Once the Me Too movement started, that changed everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only thing I could add to the good thoughts, I was thinking the same thing that Steve expressed. It happens everywhere, but I think what has changed is it used to be that when somebody turned on the light about something like that, you were alone in the room with the light by yourself. And that was scary. And I think now when you turn on the light, everybody else is watching. And it's sort of like the old Justice Brandeis quote that, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So there will probably always be predators. But I think in the past, there was a fear of turning on the light as a disinfectant. And now I think that doesn't stand anymore. And Steve's right. It's changed, and it's changed for the better. And the dirty, rotten scoundrels are going to be exposed or get the help that they need if they can. Lindsay in New Mexico writes, what makes your training as a theatrical lighting designer so valuable when you design architectural spaces? Well, I'm going to go to my notes because I thought about this a bit. And from my, interestingly, I've got a list here, but from my conversations with owners of architectural lighting firms who have hired theatrical designers, one of the first things they say that I've heard a lot is the work ethic. And what surprised me was they would say, engineers who come out of engineering programs, they sort of have a culture. They go to work at 9. They want to be home at 5. They want to have dinner with their family. They want their weekends off. Well, theater people have a different work ethic. There's this drive to get it done. We're used to these very specific deadlines. We're used to going above and beyond when necessary. So they were really appreciative of the work ethic. So I think that training outside of the aesthetics seems to be important. Something David and I were talking about earlier today on this question that, when we do theater, we sort of make a presentation. The thing you look at is at one end of a room normally, unless you're in an arena situation, but generally in architecture, it's 360. So you're living in the space rather than looking at the environment. So that's a difference between the two. I'm just talking about differences first, and then I'll talk about the theatrical training. Most of what we do is temporary. Goes up and comes down, or goes up, gets on a truck, goes somewhere else, goes up again, and then when it's over, it's over. The work you do in architecture is permanent. So there's a bit of an adjustment to make in terms of that permanency. Things that we're really good at, because we do a storyline, we do an arc, is dynamics, is cueing. We're really steeped in theater, in cueing and following a story, and then underpinning what's going on. That's not necessarily what you see in a lot of architectural design because it was expensive and considered a specialty. Now that is becoming more and more common, and we bring that to the table. We're really trained in composition, how to make, what makes a beautiful composition, what accentuates the actor, the face, the environment, the body. So I think that's important. And our study of color, our understanding of the interaction of color with material and objects and use of colored light is something that the theatrical designer comes with. And back again to the storytelling idea, we certainly are steeped in the telling of story, and architecture has a story too. We connect to an audience. So what is it about that audience, whether it's the occupants of the building or the characters in the play? We really think about that, where an engineer may or may not be thinking about that. So I think we bring all that to the table, and I think that's why we make strong people who make the transition from the stage lighting to the architectural lighting world are usually successful. I think it's that situational awareness, our understanding of what's going on, and how we bring that forward in our design work.
Something you spoke about, creating atmospheres. I always like to say, as theater designers, we create an atmosphere on stage that the audience sees and the actors live in and perform in. In architecture, we create an atmosphere that we live in.
I would like to do more of it. I don't do as much of it as I'd like, is the permanence. It sort of raises the bar. It's like, I really got to get this right. And I really want it to be good because I really can't go back and fix it the next night. Like once it's up and once it's
going to haunt you forever.
I mean, look, I got to tell you, we did one project. This came up yesterday. We took a project a few years ago to do this sculpture at the university, and they didn't have enough money. And we knew they didn't have enough money to do it right. And we really wanted to do it because we thought it would be a good hallmark project if we could do it right. And we found cutting edge technology, and we found stuff that was affordable, and we did it. And it was one of those things that did not turn out well. And my colleague who worked on it actually just the other night called me and said, I'm over here by the sculpture. Man, it looks like garbage. And I said, don't worry, the lights aren't working anymore. I mean, the sculpture looks bad and the lights don't work anymore. And I said, that was a mistake. I mean, there just wasn't enough dollars to do it right. And it's permanent. And I think, so it's a stain on our, that one did not work out well. And it's sad. So it is about, sort of being thoughtful about that and realizing it's going to be there for a long time. You are listening to Light Talk, and Light Talk is sponsored by
Light Talk University. It's been a while since you've been in the theater. It may be a little while longer before we all return. But when that day comes, are you confident that you will remember exactly how to light a show? Is lighting really like riding a bicycle, or are they just pulling your potentiometer? Well, you don't want to be left alone on the production island with everyone staring at you, wondering where your chops have gone. Before that pressure-packed day comes, when you once again have to deliver the goods, maybe you should consider enrolling in our Lighting Designer Refresher Program at Light Talk University. Taught by infamous industry has-beens, our faculty refresh all your skill sets that have saved your ass for decades. Courses include Techniques in Victim Avoidance, Fundamentals of Stagehand Lingo, Beginning Headset Throwing 101, Drunk Director Etiquette, Advanced Programmer Sign Language, Studies in Production Table Cuisine, Intermediate Speed Focusing on Skates, and Fundamentals of Fume Inhalation. These refresher courses will assure your painless transition back to frustrating technical rehearsals, 10 out of 12s that go on forever, focusing calls that are wasted with repairing broken movers, and those inevitable script changes and last-minute production numbers that create a generation of bald-headed lighting designers. So don't be foolish and overconfident like those arrogant Tony Award-winning hacks. Be one of the non-poorly educated and enroll in Light Talk University's Lighting Designer Refresher Program. It's the best use of your per diem that you will ever spend. Light Talk University is not affiliated with that weekly podcast presented by those three old washed-up lighting designers trying to stay relevant in this high-tech industry. Scholarships and assistantships are not available.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those crazed ducks in the background tell us that, once again, it's time for Let's Talk About. So today's Let's Talk About comes from a pretty funny thing that Steve was brought up last week. And it's about being an equipment snob. Are you an equipment snob? When is the gear good enough for what you are doing and you still waste your budget dollars upgrading? What do you guys think? Is the gear ever good enough? And why would you always want state-of-the-art gear?
Makes you feel good.
It's like having the latest car,
Makes
right?
you feel important. Makes you feel top of the heap, you know. A number one, you know, New York, New York. I don't know. Right now I'm looking at Chauvet DJ. Because we're going to set up these location lighting things in our students' homes. And Chauvet DJ has this great line of battery-powered LEDs with Chinese-based infrared handheld controllers. And you know what? They're pretty decent, and they're going to do the job. So there.
And what do they cost?
$12.
They're not cheap. I mean, you know, $200 for a little LED par. You know, look, one of my students told me this weekend he bought a clay packy fixture used on eBay, and he's got it in his bedroom, and he's programming it, and he's loving it. You know, it depends on the project. Some projects, if you want, you know, you need to have the best. It depends.
Right. Okay, let me rein this back in here for a second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stan really went out there for a second.
I went far.
So
he went real far.
I put in some new cyc lights a couple of years ago, and I had 4 or 5 manufacturers there. And we were doing shootouts and looking at stuff and throwing meters on it and taking photographs of it and really kind of putting them through their paces. And a couple of the manufacturers looked at me, you know, privately and said, you know, what do you want? I mean, it's never going to be perfect. You know, you need to stop worrying about if it's going to be perfect. Is it good enough? Do you like what you're seeing? I think we're programmed to think this way. All you have to do, I mean, in the last 20 years, how many times have you upgraded your phone? Did you really need to upgrade your phone? Did you go ahead and get the laptop that has the cappuccino maker attached to it, even though you hate coffee?
I've got that.
You know, we do it with cameras. We do it with flashlights. We do it with pocket knives. We spend money we don't need to be spending because somehow we think maybe I'll need that, or since I'm paying X, I might as well pay X plus a little bit more to get something I may or may not use. I'm struggling with that right now on an 85 millimeter lens. Do I want the 1.4 or do I want the 1.8? Both of them would do just fine, and the 1.8 is half the price as the 1.4,
and it'll be great.
All right. I think this has a lot to do with the type of production you're doing. So if you're doing some big commercial show where you've got a ridiculous lighting budget and there's a lot of pressure on you to create some really super stunning effects that only the latest and greatest type of fixture and controller will produce, then that's one thing. Yes, you could probably get away with doing it with a bunch of Vipers if you had to, but it would be a lot easier and a lot more expensive to buy the latest and the greatest. And you get to get all that coverage on the new Clay Packy advertising campaign. It was funny. As I remembered, I did a show at La Scala, and I used these brand new hazers. They were called stadium hazers, and they were made by Lampees. And I was like one of the first people to use them. And the only reason why I used them is because I was going to use Lampees hazers, but I would have to use 12 of them to fill the stage. But they said, hey, we could send you 2 of these and they'll do the same thing. I said, sure, why not? And they did it. They worked great. And then all of a sudden, I see myself in this like advertising campaign of Lampees. Now they asked me permission to do it. I said, absolutely, no problem. But still, if you want that, and I guess you can do that, okay? And then the other type of production is your more normal type of production where you have a realistic budget and you're trying to get 24 movers on the show for under like, $40,000. And you realize that for the same amount of money, you could actually rent 30 Vipers instead of 24 of the latest, greatest sort of thing, right? So you start thinking, okay, will the Vipers work for me? because it'd be a lot better if I had a few more of these. I could get those head highs that I've always wanted to do with Vipers, and it would add so much to the show. Or am I going to just use the 24, the latest, greatest things? And you end up not even using those to their full potential. You probably could have gotten away with BMFLs or Vipers. It'd be no problem. So I think a lot of it has to do with that. And I think you need to have some common sense when you're approaching a show and understand what the expectations are, and try to get the best bang for your buck. Don't go. I wouldn't go exactly cheap and do and take that chance, because that's going to kill you no matter what type of show you're working on. But if you get a really good fixture that's dependable, that may be last generation, and it's going to do 90% of what you want to do, then go for it. You can get more for your money, and you'll probably end up with a much better design.
Yeah, but turn that around, though. That's not what the statement is. That was not my statement. The statement is, when is the gear good enough?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying cheap. I'm not saying Mongolian equipment here. I'm saying when do you sit there and you go, I could run this show with an Ion, but heck, I'll get myself a Grand MA. So you are doing things completely for no good reason other than vanity, perhaps.
Well, I think that's a point. We deal with this in consulting. It's like you might have a big budget, or they might. How much do you need? But you have to really look at the program and go, who's going to be? If you're doing more than you need, you're not really having. I don't know. There's some sort of maybe personal integrity about that. It's sort of wasteful, and it's about your judgment. So make a good judgment. If you're spending the clients $10,000 more than the client would need to spend for you to get the job done, are you really being responsible? And then people start to question your judgment.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Mr. Consultant.
Yeah.
All right. So you're at the drive-thru of Burger King, and you normally get a Whopper for $6.49, and you're happy with that. But the sign says 2 for $5. Do you go with the 2 for $5, or do you get the 1 for $6.49?
Well, so it's a good question. So if there's somebody on the corner who's begging for food, then I might do that. But I'm not going to be unhealthy to myself and eat 2 Whoppers, because the cost, I'm going to be responsible to myself and responsible to my client. So no. So the answer is no, unless there's a good use of that extra stuff. Like, okay, we just did a gig where we could have put one light board in this facility, okay, and they could have went back and forth, right? Because they're rarely going to use the two spaces at the same time. But the owner said, we really would prefer not to move stuff around. We'd like to have dedicated consoles, and we're okay with that. Well, when the owner says that, then we'll do that. But we could have made a different choice. But we had that conversation. We didn't say, "Oh, you got to have it," and we didn't inflate their budget, because I think that it's about your reputation and your own integrity and your own judgment.
Well, listen, I like the latest and greatest things. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, me too.
And it's fun for some reason to have the latest and greatest thing. And it's an ego thing. Let's be honest. It's sort of an ego thing. Hey, have you seen this new Claypaky XYZ FI? Boy, it does everything. Makes coffee and does a picky pizza spinner at the same time. That's new and the greatest thing, right? I mean, we have sponsors like that. But there's a time when you have to get real. And getting real is when you're looking at that budget and you're saying, what can I do? What's the best equipment I can get, and the most equipment I can get, if indeed you need those different angles. And it is all about angle. It really is. I forgot who said that. It was one of our great guests talking about angles. But it is all about angles. And the more light source angles you have, the more options you have. Can
I circle back, because we talked earlier about landscape lighting, and right now I'm evaluating a landscape lighting product. It is it's one of the top landscape lighting products in the country. It's cast bronze, like it's Italian old school craftsmanship. This light is built to last, right? It's got a fantastic stake. It's got built so it goes into the ground beautifully. It's got built-in Bluetooth. I just checked out the light engine last night because I turned it on. It's gorgeous in the whites, the rich colors, got a nice little app for it. It's high quality. People in my neighborhood are not going to buy that light.
It'll be stolen by tomorrow, I guarantee.
Okay, but there are clients in a different sort of economic position who will pay for that, and they won't have to change that light for 25 years. And so it's a different market for that fixture. So it just depends on, But you're asking are you a snob? I think that's,
I think some people
some
are,
people
though.
Are.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think it's out of this question is out of bounds. There are a lot of people who are snobs. They like the attention. Yeah. It's like having the prettiest car.
It's bragging rights,
Well, it's also a snob in that same person who says, I will never use X.
XYZ.
I'm always going to use A. I will never use that company. I will always use this company. So there's a snob there, too.
Okay, well, then that makes me a snob for refusing to use
that would not meet the inclusion mentality at all. That's very exclusionary.
There are other reasons why we don't use certain companies. You know that for a fact, Steve. And it has nothing to do with their equipment. Their equipment's great. Is that if someone did you wrong, I have a real hard time forgetting about that.
Oh, so you go Old Testament on them.
I go Old Testament. I actually bring in Guido and his gang, and they take care of the situation. But it's I do go Old Testament, absolutely.
Well, I won't broad brush a company because one person might have done something, because that's painting.
But will you never let that company forget it? So that you get the best price every time.
I will never. I've never spec'd out the equipment for that company since. So, and I'm not going to talk about it. Okay. I'm going to talk. I already did. I already gave up too much information. Stan has our next question.
Scarlett from deep in the heart of Dixie asks, I'm an experienced 40-something lighting designer. I am tired of the hustle and frustration.
Join the club.
And I want to earn my MFA so I can get a university teaching gig and have it made like you guys. Wow. What should I look for in an MFA program?
Trump University.
Trump. No, Light Talk University.
She doesn't really know why the three of us are failing and falling apart, right, psychologically and physically from the years and years of unsustainable activity we've all been engaged in. But seriously, folks,
I'm falling apart here.
Yeah, but seriously, let me give you some answers. I took some notes on this. So the first thing I would say is, I would want to reach out and study with somebody who you respect and their work and their teaching and what they've done across their career. So that's the first thing. I would just look for that. I would also specifically look for if the MFA program will give you opportunities to teach. So because you need to sort of get better at it. David and I were talking about this the other day, that most of us, we didn't get any training in education. We got trained as designers and we learned our craft, but nobody taught us how to teach, which is sort of crazy. I got lucky in that I married somebody who actually has art education training. And so at home I could get tutorials. And I also was lucky that for a while I taught at a former teacher's college where there was a lot of emphasis on developing your teaching abilities. So I think that's important. And then if the institution offers support for teachers, that's really important. Is there a dedicated office where people are there to help you improve your teaching? At the University of Florida, I'm proud to say, we have the Center for Teaching Excellence, where anyone can call, make an appointment, sit down with somebody, and that's their focus. And I did this a couple of weeks ago, and I got to tell you, I'm teaching for a long time. I got some great feedback on how to improve my syllabus. I got some great feedback about tools and methods that I didn't know about, including technical ones. Like I told David this morning about Google Jamboard, and I'm going to be using that in class because I'm going to be online. So I would look for those kinds of resources in those programs.
I think you need to look for a program that's going to help you break bad habits. So your late 30s, early 40s, you've been out making a living, and what does that mean? That means doing as many shows as you can possibly do as fast as you can, and you would be happy if you were doing 3 shows a month. So I think this kind of crunch that young working professionals have is that they have bad habits. I think you go into a program that's going to make you think outside of your comfort zone. Now, you may be innocent. You may be completely innocent, but there are plenty of people who say, I'm going to put blue on this side, pink on that side. I got 4 hours to focus. I got to get this thing cued because I'm moving on to the next show in 5 days. So I think you go into a program that makes you think through your designs, that makes you actually take time and take risks and stop pulling out the R80 for your blue cycle on every show. Also, I think it's a program that's going to teach you how to listen. I think until you learn how to listen, you're not going to be a very good teacher. I don't know that MFA programs are set up to teach you how to teach. And that is, it's a difficulty. But, I think what schools are looking for when they're looking for that assistant professor or that instructor, they're looking for someone who's going to bring something to the classroom. And that means a strong work history and a strong portfolio and interesting ideas. I think the teaching is not that hard. I think it's scary when you're first starting and you're trying to figure out how you're setting up your classes day after day after day. But I think you're going to find most universities who offer teaching assistantships, you're teaching things that aren't probably what you think you're going to be teaching. First of all, if you're getting your MFA, just the way college is set up, they're not going to let you teach other MFAs. So I think what you're looking for is a finishing school to help you elevate you to the next level of your design ability. So I don't know. I'm not so crazy about graduate assistantships in teaching. I think you get the busy work and you're not really accomplishing much, and it's taking a lot away from your work on your real life shows. I don't know if graduate school is going to magically make you a teacher. So,
Steve, you convinced me. I'm on your side. I agree. I mean, we should be teaching teachers, for God's sake.
I'm going to throw David under the bus here. And I don't mean to embarrass him, but he had a pretty sizable resume in the professional world before he started teaching. And I don't think anyone said, do you know how to take attendance? Do you know how to buy a textbook? I mean, are you going to turn Don Holder down when he applied to teach that first time? Are you going to say, I don't know, you haven't taught my friend Delico? People are looking at your demeanor, how you present yourself, what your ideas are, the strength of your portfolio, the places you've worked, the variety you bring to the job place. So maybe you look for a theater company, a university that's got strong ties to a regional theater. So you start moving into a slightly different atmosphere. Or maybe you've never worked in New York. So maybe you start looking at those schools in the New York metropolitan area. And it doesn't hurt, I think, to pick a school in a region where you hope to work, because that school is going to have connections in those regions. If you want to go out, God forbid, and work in California that's about to fall off in the ocean, I would go to a California school and try to, at your age, at 40, I would really tap into what the doors that school can open for you.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, Live Design Online, and just about every other podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocked, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about even more happenings in our crazy industry.
Let's hope we have some. All that and a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So see you all next Saturday morning. Stay healthy and stay happy, and bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everybody.
Toodles.
Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk. Light Talk. Light Talk. Lumen